Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. I welcome you all in this lecture in the course Sandhi in Paninian grammar. In this lecture, we continue studying ach sandhi or the vowel sandhi. We stated that ach sandhi means sandhi that takes place of a vowel, an ach. This sandhi could be a consonant as well as another vowel, depending on the environment. We said that there are two types of ach sandhi. On the screen you see the second type, dvisthanika ekadesha. The first one is ekasthanika ekadesha, one sthani and one substitute, one substituent and one substitute, one sthani and one adesha. We studied that there are two instances of ekasthanika ekadesha. They are yan sandhi and ayavayav sandhi. Yan sandhi is stated by the sutra iko yanachi and ayavayav sandhi is stated by echo yavayavaha. And then there are some more sutras also stating this particular sandhi. We studied the meaning of these sutras. We also studied the uddeshya vidheya bhava and the number of substituents then delineated because of this uddeshya vidheya bhava. We also studied the criterion for selection of the substitute. We also studied the template examples, and then we studied the specific examples which fill into these templates. Thus we exhaustively studied the first type of ach sandhi. We applied the same procedure to the second type, namely dvisthanika ekadesha, where we have dvisthani and eka adesha, two substituents and one substitute. Stated by the Adhikara Sutra Ekapurva Parayoho 6.184, where eka represents one substitute, Purva Parayoho stands for in place of previous and latter sound. Purva Para is the Pratipadika and Purva Parayoho is the 6/2 of Purva Para. Purva is previous, Para is latter. So in all, this sutra means one substitute takes place of two sounds, namely the previous one and the latter one. This is also shown in this particular diagram, where we have A plus B in close proximity in the Samhita mode. Also stated like this: A comes immediately before B and B comes immediately after A. Both in their turn bracketing each other and specifying each other as environment. So In this environment of A plus B appearing in the Samhita mode, what we have is one of the rules stated in this section that begins with 6184 applies and generates the output in the form of C. So A plus B are the two sthanis, C is the one adesha, two substituents, one substitute. A plus B is the input. One of the rules in this particular section applies and generates the output in the form of just C. In case of Ekasthanika Ekadesha, we observed that we have A plus B as the input and the output is C plus B. This is the primary difference between Ekasthanika Ekadesha and Dvisthanika Ekadesha. There are 5 instances of Dvisthanika Ekadesha. The first one is Guna Sandhi stated by Adgunaha 6187. The second one is Vriddhi Sandhi stated by the Sutra Vriddhirechi 6188. The third one is Pararupa Sandhi stated by the Sutra Engi Pararupam and some other sutras. Engi Pararupam is 6194. Fourthly, Akassavarane Dirghaha is the sutra stating the Savarna Dirgha Sandhi. Savarna Dirgha Sandhi is the fourth instance stated by the sutra Akassavarane Dirghaha 61101. And finally, Purvarupa Sandhi stated by the sutra Ami Purvaha 61101 onwards. This is what we are going to study in this particular lecture. It is important for us to remember these fundamentals about Ach Sandhi, the two basic types and the instances of each type. They are repeated only for the sake of convenience and the repetition should bring in more clarity, only that is the purpose. Let us now concentrate on Purvarupa Sandhi, the fifth one of the second type. This Purvarupa Sandhi is stated by the following 4 sutras that we shall be dealing with. The first one is Ami Purvaha 61107. The second one is Samprasaranachya 61108. The third one is Engaha Padantat Ati 61109. And finally Nasingasoscha 6110110. These are the 4 sutras that we shall be studying in detail in today's lecture. First, let us study Ami Purvaha 61107. There are 2 words in the sutra, Ami and Purvaha. Ami is 7/1 of This is the 2/1 suffix. Su aujas out shas and so on. So is the 2/1 Dvitiya Ekavachana Pratyaya suffix. That is what is mentioned over here. And Ami is 7/1 of So Ami means immediately before Purvaha is 1/1 of Purva, that is previous sound. This is the substitute Purvaha. Rupa continues from Engi Pararupam and so gets connected with Purvaha, and then Purvarupam is what is the interpretation that is generated. The other words continued in this particular sutra are Akaha 5/1 of Ak. Ak means A, I, U, Ru and Lu. So Ak captures the first 2 pratyaharas stated in the Pratyahara Sutra and the sound stated therein, these 5 vowels. So akaha means immediately after these 5 vowels. Achi is 7/1 of ach, meaning a vowel, that is immediately before a vowel. And of course we have ekah purva parayoho. So one substitute in place of 2 earlier and latter substituents. For ru and lu, which is also part of ak, there are other specific rules stated in Panini's grammar which cancel 6, 1, 107. For example, rutongi sarvanamasthanayoho. So this sutra states the guna substitute in place of ru and also lu when follows. So this sutra will cancel 61107. All put together, let us look at the meaning of amipurvaha. Amipurvaha means immediately before that is the 2/1 suffix dvitiya ekavachana pratyaya, immediately before and immediately after ak, in place of both is placed one substitute, that is the previous one, that is in this case the ak. It is important to remember here that the environment for this purvarupa sandhi is just this suffix. So the environment is very, very restricted. This sutra functions only in case of suffix. In this case, this is 2/1. Now, let us look at the examples. So, for example, we have Rama plus Rama plus This is the dvitiya ekavachana pratyaya, and the final form that we are deriving is Ramam, the dvitiya ekavachana form of the Pratipadika Rama. So when you have Rama plus there is this and this in Rama comes at the end of it, in comes at the beginning of it. Since this is one pada, prakriti and pratyaya, so samhita is obligatory, and so in place of both of them, this sutra 61107 applies and generates the output in the form Ram, and Ma, that is Ramam. In this case, obviously, is followed by another so this is the scope of application of akas savarne dirghaha as well, generating long a as the output. But because both these akaras are within a pada, we also have the pararupa sandhi that can apply over here. Ato gune. Apadantadakarat gune parataha pararupam ekadeshasyat. So pararupa sandhi is also possible. All these possibilities, they are cancelled by amipurvaha because of the specific mention of the suffix In case of no pararupam, no savarna dirghaha, just the purvarupam. So we have Ram, and Ma, that is Ramam. In case of Hari plus obviously there is Iko Yanachi which has got its scope of application, but it is cancelled by this sutra Amipurvaha, which operates in a very restricted domain of the pratyaya So we have Hari having E at the end, at the beginning of and because this is one pada, samhita is obligatory, and so in place of both these vowels 61107 applies and generates the output in the form of Har, I, Ma, Harim. Then we have Gauri plus Now this is a long vowel, E followed by A. Once again Iko Yanachi has got the scope of application. But because this sutra 61107 has got a very limited scope of application, so in this limited scope of application 61107 cancels Iko Yanachi. And so in place of both these vowels is substituted the Purva, that is this long E. So we have Gaur, E and Ma, that is Gaurim. Similar is the case with Bhanu and Chamu. So we have Bhanu plus the scope of application for Iko Yanachi, but is cancelled by this particular sutra because of the limited domain of application. And so in Bhanu plus U, in Bhanu plus U coming at the end of this pada, coming at the beginning of this pada, because this is within a pada, so Samhita is obligatory, 61107 applies and generates the output Bhan U Ma, that is Bhanum. Similarly Chamu plus where we have long U followed by A and 61107 applies and generates the output Cham, U and Ma, that is Chamu. This is how Amipurvaha operates in a very, very restricted domain. Let us now proceed to the next sutra, Samprasaranacha 61108. Here there are two words, two padas in the sutra, Samprasaranat and Cha. Samprasaranat is 5/1 of Samprasarana, which means immediately after Samprasarana. Cha means and. Achi is continued. Achi is 7/1 of Ach, that is immediately before a vowel. Purvaha is continued from Amipurvaha, previous sound as substitute. And Ekapurva Parayoho is also continued, meaning one substitute in place of two substituents earlier and latter, Purva and Para. So the meaning of this sutra is immediately after a Samprasarana and immediately before a vowel, in place of both is substituted the previous sound, that is the Samprasarana. So what is a Samprasarana is the next question. And Samprasarana is a technical term defined by Panini by this particular sutra, Igyanas Samprasaranam 1145. Ik, as we know, is a pratyahara and it captures the sounds I, U, Ru and Lu, and ik is in 1/1, so ik is the substitute. Yanaha is 6/1 of Yan. Yan is another pratyahara meaning Ya, Va, Ra and La. So Yanaha means in place of Yan. So the sutra means ik, that is stated as a substitute of Yan by the sutra is termed Samprasarana. Repeat, ik, that is stated as a substitute of Yan is termed Samprasarana, stated by the sutras 6.1.15 as well as 16. So if Yan is the input, and in its place 6.1.15 or 16 has stated an ik, this ik is called Samprasarana. This ik is called Samprasarana. Let us take the example. There are two examples on this particular slide. Let us take the left hand side example where you have Vach plus Ta. This is the past passive participle of the verbal root vacha to speak, and we add the suffix ta to it by the sutra 32102 nishtha. Now in this case, because this suffix is kit, so 6114 applies and substitutes this v consonant by yan, in this case by ik, in this case u. So we have u replacing the v consonant, a remaining as it is, and ch. So we have u ach plus ta. Now here is the case where you have u as samprasarana. Immediately after this u comes a vowel. So samprasaranat and achi, and now in place of both of them substitute the purva, that is this samprasarana. So the next step is, by the application of 61108 we get uch plus ta. Then we apply 8230 and substitute this cha by ka, and so we get uk plus ta, ukta, something that is said. That is what is ukta. This is an example of samprasaranach. Let us take one more example of samprasaranach. This is the verbal form. So we take the verbal root graha to take or to cognize and add the suffix lat to it to indicate the present tense by 32123. This lat gets substituted by ti by 3478. Now this verbal root graha and this suffix ti have one more suffix in between, namely na, added by 3181. So now you have graha plus na plus ti. Now because of this na, now something happens in this graha. So this vowel, so this consonant ra now is substituted by a samprasarana. So now this r gets substituted by vowel ru. So we have gru. This a remains as it is, and we have aha. So gru, aha, na and ti. And now we have samprasarana followed by a vowel. So in place of both of them, 61108 applies and says, do the purva rupa sandhi. That means substitute this samprasarana. So by doing that we have grihnati and then grihnati, which means he or she takes, he or she cognizes. So these are the samprasaranas, and this is the samprasarana substitute coming in place of two vowels, and the purva rupa sandhi takes place. Now let us study the third sutra, engah padantat ati. In this sutra there are three padas, engaha, padantat and ati. This is 61109. Engaha is 5/1 of eng. Eng means A and O. Engaha means immediately after eng, that is immediately after A or O. Padantat is 5/1 of padanta. Padanta means final part of a pada. So padantat means immediately after something that comes at the end of a pada. This 5/1 and engaha, which is also 5/1, are related. So padantat becomes the qualifier of engaha. So what both these mean is, if an eng coming at the end of a pada, so if eng occupies the final position of a pada, then immediately after that, that is the meaning of engaha and padantat. Then we have ati, 7/1 of at. At meaning short a. So ati means immediately before short a. So immediately after eng, that comes at the end of a pada, and immediately before short a, what happens is Purva Rupa. So previous sound is the one substitute. Of course, Ekah Purva Parayoho continues. So the meaning of the sutra is immediately after ing, that is a and o, that comes at the end of a pada, and immediately before short a, in place of both is substituted the previous sound, that is ing, that is a and o. I repeat, immediately after ing, ingaha, that is a and o. So immediately after a or and o, that comes at the end of a pada, padantat, and immediately before short a, ati, in place of both, purva parayoho, is substituted the previous sound, that is purva rupa. In this case it is ing, which is a or o. So here is an example, hare plus ava. These two are separate padas, and so they are in the close proximity because the speaker intends to utter them in close proximity. So we have hare having a at the end of the pada, and a, short a, coming at the beginning of the second pada. And now in this case 61109 applies and generates the output. In place of a and a is the substitute. So you have har, a and va, and then you join them together and you get hare va as the output. Similarly, you have Vishnu plus ava, where you have o at the end followed by a at the beginning of the next word. They are in the samhita mode, and so 61109 applies and substitutes both o and a by the previous sound. In this case it is o. So we have Vishnu, o and va, and so Vishnova. That is the output generated. Both these outputs, they are also written as this. There is a sign of avagraha, this is called avagraha, that is inserted in between, something that resembles the English S, Hareva and Vishnova, because there is this long vowel and there is this sandhi. So this is indicated by this sign, insertion. This is how Engah Padantat Ati works. If you look at these examples once again, you will observe that when you have hare plus ava, a followed by a, actually this is an instance of echo yavayavaha. Similar is the case with o plus a. But echo yavayavaha applies generally at the end of the pada as well as in the middle of the pada, anywhere. And also the right hand environment could be any vowel. But in this case it has to be only a, the right hand side environment, and this a has to be at the end of a pada, that's all. Once again, very restricted, very limited environment in this particular sutra applies. Now the final sutra in these four, the sutra is Ngasingasoscha. Ngasingasoho is 7/2 of Ngasi and Ngas, Ngasingas. Ngasingas are two suffixes, 5/1 and 6/1. Suaujas, Amautshas, Tabhyambhis, Ngebhyambhyas, Ngasi 5/1, Bhyambhyas, Ngas 6/1, Os Am, Ngeosup. So 5/1 and 6/1 are Ngasingas. Ngasingasoho means immediately before Ngasingas. Cha means and. Words continued are engaha and ati. Engaha is 5/1 of eng, A-O, which means then immediately after eng, that is immediately after A and O. Ati is 7/1 of at, that is short a. So ati means immediately before short a. Purvaha, that is previous sound as substitute. And ekapurva parayoho, one substitute in place of two, namely the earlier and the latter substituents. The meaning of the sutra, after having put all these things together, is the following. Immediately before ngasingas, that is suffixes of 5/1 and 6/1, and immediately after eng, that is A or O, in place of both is placed one substitute, which is the previous sound, purva rupa, that is eng, that is A or O. I repeat, immediately before ngasingas, ngasingasoho, which are suffixes of 5/1 and 6/1, and immediately after eng, engaha, in place of both purva parayoho is placed one substitute, ekaha, which is purvaha or purva rupam, which in this case is eng. Once again, this rule, as we observe, applies in a very restricted domain of, let us say, cases 5/1 and 6/1, a very restricted domain. So, in this case, it also cancels echo yavayavaha, which would have otherwise applied. Here are the two examples. The first one is the 5/1 of Hari, and the second one is the 6/1 of Bhanu. So, Hari plus Ngasi, Ngasi is added by 412, then we have Hari plus As, so the markers are removed. Ng by Lashakvatadhite, E by Upadeshe Ajanunasikait 138 and 132, and then they are deleted by Tasya Lopaha 139. So we have Hari plus As. Now, in this case, Iko has the scope of application, but that is cancelled by 73111, which substitutes guna in place of this E gher ngiti. So we have Hare plus As, and now at this stage Nasingasoscha comes into play and says that in place of this A and this A, don't do Echoyavayavaha, but substitute one A in place of both of them. So we have Hare plus As as the input, 61110 applies, and the output is Har A S, that is Hares and Harehe, which means from Hari. Similar will be the derivation of 6/1 as well. Now let us go to the 6/1 of Bhanu, where we have Bhanu plus Ngas, and here we have 412 applying, then the Ich Saudhnya and Lopa happens, so we have Bhanu plus As. Now once again Gher Ngiti applies, 73111, and this U is substituted by O, so we have Bhano plus As. Now at this stage Echoyavayavaha has the scope of application, but that is cancelled and 61110 applies and substitutes both these O and A by one substitute, that is Purva, that is in this case O. So we have Bhan, O, S, Bhanos and Bhanuho. Similarly, the 5/1 of Bhanu can also be derived. To summarize, we studied the Purva Rupa Sandhi along with the study of the 4 sutras. This Sandhi applies, as we have seen, in a very restricted domain, and so it cancels the by default rules like 6, 178, etc. We also noted that 6, 1, 107, 108 and 110 Ami Purvaha Samprasaranachya and Nasing Asoscha apply only within a pada, whereas 61109 Ingaf Padantadati applies only in between two padas. This distinction is very, very important. So now we come to the close of the treatment of Ach Sandhi. The fifth instance, namely Purva Rupa Sandhi, is also dealt with now. So we will take a look at the study of Ach Sandhi that we carried out in this particular course. This we shall do in the next lecture. Thank you for your patience.